Hi, everybody. We're ready to get started. My name is Nora Phoenix. Well, that's not my name. Let's just say I am Nora today, sort of. And I'm here to talk to you about the power of focus. And I'm going to start out by telling a little bit about myself. And the first question is a lot of people ask me is where that adorable accent is from, which is from the Netherlands. Do we have any fellow Dutchies here? I know you. Nobody else? Okay, well, it was worth a try. I'm from the Netherlands. I was born and raised there. I moved to New York in 2013, so I've been here for 10 years now, and it looks like I'm, going to be here for a while. While this nice gentleman is fixing the technical problems. So I have been writing since I was a teenager. I still have those books. They're adorable, handwritten or on an actual typewriter. And I kept them, which is really cute to look at now because they're full of teenage angst and all that. I didn't get serious about writing until I lived in Germany, which was in 2010. And we moved there because my then husband got a job there, and which meant I was a stay-at-home mom in Germany, and I did all the research and started writing, and then once we got to New York and unfortunately got divorced, this became my full-time job. And I was convinced that if I was going to make this happen, I had to get it right. Now, something you need to know about me is that I am a very type A, organized, structured, get shit done person. That's just how I'm wired. So a lot of what I will share in this talk comes from that place. If you are not that person, that's okay. That doesn't make you less, that just makes you different. And that means that some of the things I'm sharing may not work for you. Which is fine, because I'm sure there will be enough for you that you can use out of what I'm sharing. The second thing that's important to mention is that I got started in 2017, and I write romance, male-male romance, which is a very specific subgenre of romance, a very small niche. If you are starting now, that's a very different circumstance than I was in 2017. The market has changed. Genres constantly evolve. So keep that in mind as well when you listen to things I share, is that if you are a newer author and getting started now, it may not necessarily work for you. The last thing that I think is important to mention, how many of you have done Becca Syme's course? Do we have? Yes, I see hands. Okay. So Becca Syme, who's, by the way, absolutely fabulous and amazing, does this course where you do what's called the Clifton Strengths Test. And it really helps you see what kind of personality you have and what your strengths are. So for those who are familiar with the lingo, I am a #1 achiever, a #2 learner, and a #3 competitive. So if you wonder why I'm really good at what I do, there's your answer. Part of it is simply how I am wired. So if you are trying some things and they don't work for you, don't think that that's your fault. It may mean that you're wired differently and that you need to find a way that works for you. So out of everything that I'm about to share, short story, your mileage may vary. I hope you're going to get a lot from it, and I also hope my PowerPoint will work, because otherwise it's going to be a really brief talk. Can I really quickly see what I was about to say, because otherwise... All right. I'm just going to start, and we'll jump in once that's live. So I want to start by talking about, when we talk about the power of focus, we need to start by defining what the problem is. Who here has a problem with wanting to do everything? See, you came to the right place. Yay. The problem we have as authors is that every day or every week we come across something, and our first reaction is, wow, I need to do that, or I should do that. Should is the worst word in the vocabulary. I should do that. The problem is we don't have time to do it all. but we want to, and we feel like we have to. We want to do all the things, and we feel like we have to all the things, because maybe if we do all the things, maybe then we'll reach whatever level of success that we're striving for. The problem is that we can't. There's 24 hours in a day, and if you add something, something else will suffer. I'm not good at math, but even I can do that math. 24 hours is 24 hours. So that is not the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. Successful people have not suddenly figured out a way to add more hours to the day. It's still 24 hours. The problem is that by putting this pressure on yourself of, I want to do all the things, I should do all the things, and I'm trying to do all the things, what is the result? Is stress. What does stress do to your body? What happens when you're stressed? Well, I'm also not like really well versed in brain science, but I am a number 2 learner, so I do read all the things and learn all the things. And the problem with stress is that instead of using your prefrontal, your amygdala takes over. And your amygdala is like instinct, and it's stress, 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 so you can't think. You go into this reactive panic mode, and the stress only increases. So that is the problem. The problem is there is stress. So see, this is why I skipped a slide, because I couldn't see what I was supposed to do. So I'm going to tell you what I am going to talk about and then skip back to where we were already. So, oh, that's interesting. There we go. We're going to talk about the problem, we're going to talk about the solution, and I want to talk really specifically and practically about what focus looks like. What is focus, and what does that look like for an author? So see the disclaimers I did do off the top of my head, pretty proud of that. I also covered the problem off the top of my head, and that's because the problem is very, very familiar to all of us, right? That's the problem right there. So we try to do all the things, and we want to do all the things, or we are so overwhelmed with all the choices that we have that we can't decide what to do, and we don't do anything, and then we fail too. Both problems are equally stressful. Whether you're the kind of person who is overwhelmed by all the choices or the kind of person who is overwhelmed by trying to do everything, the stress is the same. So that is the problem. So now we need to talk about what is the solution. Well, obviously, the solution is focus, but that's easier said than done. So we need to talk about what is focus. According to Merriam-Webster, focus is a center of activity, attraction, or attention, or a point of concentration. For example, if you focus a light beam on one point, you can actually burn a hole into a paper, as we have learned by playing with a spyglass. At least, you know, if you're Gen X like I am, then you will have played with that and figured out that that's how you start a fire, and then your dad yelled at you or your mom. So. Am I right? Yeah, that's what we did. Gen X all the way, 1974, baby. It was a good year. So the thing with focus is, instead of doing all the things, we do a few things, but we do them well. Because if you try to do all the things, you're going to fail. If you try to do a few things, and actually I should say if you do a few things, because as Yoda famously explained, do or do not, there is no try. If you do a few things and you do them well, the impact will be much, much bigger. I need to do a little content warning because, wait, what are we doing? Oh, there we go. At any given time, like I said, you can do one thing well or two or more things poorly. Now, I need to do a content warning. For those of you who are adamantly opposed to the Patriots and or Tom Brady, I'm issuing a content warning. I just want to point that out. Everybody good? You can leave now. I'll give you 5 seconds. No? Okay. So, I don't know why the picture isn't showing. There he is. All right. Tom Brady back in 2000 when he did his NFL scouting. These were the exact words used to describe him. Poor build, skinny, lacks great physical stature and strength, lacks mobility and the ability to avoid the rush, lacks a really strong arm, can't drive the ball downward. Now imagine being Tom Brady and that is being said about you and your desire is to play quarterback in the NFL. For those who are not American, Tom Brady is a quarterback in the NFL. I don't have the time to explain football to you or why it's called football, because the foot does not touch the ball. It's more of a throw thing, really. And also football is soccer, and soccer is a stupid term, but that's beside the point. So Tom Brady. So this is what they said about him back in 2000. Now, Brady is now retired, and this is how the man retired. 23 years in the NFL, 7 Super Bowl titles, 5 times Super Bowl MVP, most valuable player, record holder for passing yards, touchdown passes, pass attempts, passes completed, most wins. And I mean, the list is freaking long, and the chances of anyone surpassing him are not that great. What is the difference, has been the difference for Tom Brady? Now, you can say about him what you want. I don't know if he's a nice guy. I've never met him. He could be the biggest dick on the planet, for all I know. He probably is. But the man has focus. If you read about him and how he trained once he was selected, it is nothing but focus. He was the first to show up at training and the last to leave. He has done nothing else but focus on football. Now, you can say that might have been at the cost of 2 marriages, and you might have a point. So there's a cost to focus, which we will also talk about. But the single one reason that Tom Brady was as successful as he was focus, because he clearly did not have the natural athletic ability back in 2000. He was the 199th pick in the NFL draft that year, and the 7th quarterback to be picked. So 6 other quarterbacks were picked before him. By the way, they all failed. And then there's Tom Brady. He is the example of the power of focus. So everybody who hates the Patriots, that was it. You can now relax again, and we'll move on to the fun part. Hold on, there we go. So we're going to talk about what focus looks like. And I'm going to go through all of these 7 habits. Nice, right? 7, more like round number, really good. We're going to talk about single tasking instead of multitasking. We're going to talk about building habits and systems. We're going to talk about the 80-20 principle, also known as the Pareto principle. We're going to talk about how to use your brain and trick yourself a little, how to be content with good instead of great. And those of you who have perfection as your #1 skill, you're going to have to plug your ears there for a couple minutes. Choose the right things and learn to say no, which we're going to practice. And we're going to talk about how to focus on the things that you can control, because there's a whole lot that we cannot control, but this we can control. All right, let's start with multitasking. Multitasking is a myth because research shows that multitasking is neurologically impossible. The only way we can multitask if the 2 tasks are not competing for brain space. So you can talk and drive, but probably if you're just learning to drive, it is really hard for you to have an intelligent conversation and drive at the same time, because you still need too much focus for the driving. I've had my driver's license since, I don't know, 1997, whatever. Old. That's what I'm saying, old. It's not a problem for me because I'm almost driving on, automatic pilot. Like, it is so ingrained, I don't need a whole lot of brain power for that. There's a lot of stuff that, are mindless tasks. I can listen to an audiobook and crochet. I can listen to music and do the dishes, or listen to music and tell my son to do the dishes, which I really prefer. Those are tasks that you can combine. But if there are 2 tasks that both require your brain power, you cannot multitask. No matter how much you tell yourself that you can and you are the exception, trust me when I say research has shown you're not, you're just lying to yourself. What multitasking is actually task switching. So you're not doing 2 tasks at the same time. You are rapidly switching between 2 different tasks. The problem is you're being ineffective, and research shows that. So what it does, multitasking, is actually continuous partial attention. So instead of you focusing completely and deeply on one thing, you are constantly giving very superficial attention to multiple things. You're never deep diving, you're never fully concentrating and focusing, you're just juggling all the things. The problem is also that this weakens our ability to concentrate, and this is something that researchers are very focused on right now in their research, is because of all the social media and the way that that has evolved in our phones, and apps like TikTok, which, you know, with their short videos really have a short attention span. How does that affect our ability to concentrate? Well, it turns out it negatively affects it. Research shows that having your phone next to you, even if it is turned off, visibly next to you, weakens your concentration with 50%, because subconsciously you are in anticipation of the first notification popping up, which I found fascinating. Also, my phone is in my bag. And when we talked about stress, this is why this causes so much stress to multitasking, is because it releases cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And what the stress hormone does, again, is it really makes it impossible for us to think rationally and to process information. So not only are we very ineffective at juggling all these tasks, we're also not learning and not truly filing and storing the information that we're learning, because we can't. We're not learning. We're just existing. So the opposite of multitasking is single tasking. And this is a concept that has been revolutionary for me. I was one of those people who would proudly acclaim, of course I can multitask. I'm a mom. We can all multitask. Yeah, we can to a certain degree. But not when it comes to things and tasks that require our brain power, like writing and a lot of our marketing activities do. What we need is single tasking. So what is single tasking? Single tasking means that you, instead of switching, focus on one task. Because the constant switching of focus actually costs you more hours to complete a task. Whereas if you focus on just one task, you would be much quicker and much shorter with that one task. And that's also what research has confirmed, is that the most productive employees change focus relatively few times. They have also shown that those who are most ineffective switch tasks up to 500 times within a working day. That is insane. Our brains are not built for that. So what we need to do is single tasking, and actually it is correlated to happiness. Who knew that all you need to do to be happy is focus on one task at a time? You heard it here first, people. The thing is that being completely engaged does something to us and does something to our brain. It gives us a very deep sense of engagement and of fulfillment that the multitasking does not do. We might, after multitasking, be able to check things off, but we never get that true flow state that we really long for. And you know what I mean, because every now and then you will hit that state where it seems like the whole world disappears and you are just focused on this, maybe on your writing or on something else, and all of a sudden you're in this flow state and the words just flow out of your fingers and everything else ceases to exist and time stands still, and it's almost like when you get out of the flow state, you have to shake your head and reconnect with reality. That does something to our brain. It makes us happy. How cool is that? So, single tasking means that you focus on one task at a time and fully immerse yourself in that task. That also means turning off all distractions. Social media is the mother of all evil. It really is. I love Facebook, I really do, and I'm also pretty active on Twitter, but you have to turn them on if you want to get shit done. You really do. So for some people, the answer is to not put those apps on their phone. I use several things, but mostly I just don't open them on my computer. There are also things like using a social media blocker, which is an app you can install on your computer that will block all websites that you're not supposed to be on for a certain amount of time, let's say for an hour. So you can't go on Facebook for a whole hour, and some of us need that. It's also detoxing, by the way. You'll notice that it takes some time to get used to that, and once you do, it makes one hell of a difference. So a fun technique to use is to set a timer for a specific time. It's called the Pomodoro technique. There's a few names for it. But for example, set a simple alarm for 25 minutes. And for 25 minutes, you do nothing else but focus on that one task. All distractions are off, all notifications are off, your phone is off, everything is off. You do just that one task for 25 minutes. And then you take a 5-minute break, and then you set the timer again for 25 minutes. And then you take a 10-minute break, and then you set the timer again for 25 minutes. And if you do that 4 times, it's time for lunch. And then you're allowed to do 30 minutes. I'm just kidding. But the idea is that it's a way to trick our brain, because if we tell ourselves, I'm going to write for the next 4 hours, our brain is like, whoa, 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 whoa. That is way too ambitious there. Like, we can't do that. But if we tell ourselves we're going to focus for the next 25 minutes, our brain is like, okay, 25 minutes I can do, right? That's about half an episode of Friends. I can do that. Like, 25 minutes is doable. 2 commercial breaks and we're there. So use that against yourself or for yourself, actually. Trick your brain a little, and that technique really works. And then if you have weird thoughts while you're trying to concentrate and something pops into your head, you're like, crap, I needed to buy milk. Just put a notepad to your right and just write it down, buy milk, and then go back to your task. That is not task switching. That is offloading information that is floating in your brain, because as soon as you've written it down, you can forget about it, and your brain will forget about it. It's written down, it's covered, next. So it really sums up when walking, walk, and when eating, eat. That is single tasking, is focus on one thing at a time. It's going to take practice, I can tell you that. The second thing is that we really need to start building habits and systems. And there's 2 important concepts that you need to understand, and it's ego depletion and decision fatigue, and the 2 are very closely related. The concept is that you have a finite amount of willpower every day. And with every decision that you make, with everything that costs you willpower, you use some of that amount. So at some point, you run out. It will be depleted. In the same way, you use willpower for all manner of tasks. The problem is that if you spend your decision energy and your willpower on decisions and stuff that really don't matter much, you won't have any left for the stuff that does matter. So this is why habits and systems are really important. The more that you build into a system and a habit, habits don't require willpower. It's a habit. You don't have to decide to do something if it is a habit. My son had the nasty habit of leaving the garage door open. So he would play outside, he'd come inside, he'd leave the garage door open. After waking up twice in the morning and discovering that our garage door had been open all night, and thus our house freely accessible to anybody with bad intentions, we live in a safe small town, I decided to make it a habit to check every night before going to bed if the garage doors were closed. I don't have to think about that. It is completely automatic. The funny thing is, I do it when he's not home. That's how much of a habit it is. I know I close the damn garage door. I don't forget it. But even when he's with his dad, I still check the garage doors every single night. It's a habit. I don't have to decide. I don't have to waste energy on it. I do it automatically. It's a 2-second thing. Doors are closed. I can go to sleep. That's the benefit of habits and systems. So you need to be really judicious about what you use your willpower and your decision energy on. Any given time, systems and processes and routines and habits trump willpower. The more you build into a routine, the less energy and willpower you will need. So the key really is to build these productive and healthy habits. Now, again, that's easier said than done, which I really know. At the end of the talk, I'm going to give you some books, yes, number 2 learner, that have been super helpful for me, and I hope that might help you build these. That also includes routines for writing. And so one example I want to give you is something that I have trained myself to do, is I have a routine to start writing. I sit down behind my computer. I always check my email and my social media first, then turn everything off, and then it's time to write. I turn on the same music. As soon as my brain hears the music, it's like, oh, it's writing time. It's the same music every single freaking time. Now, some of you are sitting here going, how can you listen? I don't listen to the music. I don't need the music. I need the music to tell my brain it's time to write. And because I have trained myself in this habit, my brain knows it's time to write. It lets go of everything else. I do not ever have writer's block, ever. I don't, music goes on, my brain goes, what are we writing? That's a habit you can train yourself. That's a routine that you can set up. You don't have to do it with music. Maybe you need to sit in the same spot. Maybe you need to turn on a certain light. It's really funny what you can teach your brain. Any cue will do. I mean, I'm not kidding. You could use a toothbrush on your desk to tell yourself it's time to write. I don't know what it has to do with writing, but I actually have a friend who has a toothbrush on her desk, and as soon as she puts the toothbrush in front of her keyboard, it's time to write. I have no idea how she came up with that, but that's her cue. So get creative. Use something funny. I don't know. There we go. This is a quote I came across from President Obama. It's an old interview from 2012, but I thought it was really interesting. He says, "You'll see I wear only gray or blue suits. I'm trying to pare down decisions. I don't want to make decisions about what I'm eating or wearing because I have too many other decisions to make." Now, we're not going to talk about the infamous tan suit. Clearly, that was an abnormality. But the thing is, President Obama was very much aware of the number of important decisions that he had to make every day. He did not want to waste his willpower and his decision energy on the stupid stuff. Is it boring that he wears the same color suit every day? First of all, I don't care, whatever. But it works because he doesn't have to decide. And by the way, Steve Jobs did the exact same, like the famous black, what do you call those? Thank you. That's me not being English. I'm trying to think. What do we call those in English? It's the same thing. He doesn't have to think because he always wears the same thing. Something to keep in mind. All right, we're going to talk about the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. What it simply says is that there's a nonlinear relationship between input and output. And if you think that sounds complicated, it does, but I'll explain. The thing is that there is a relationship between efforts and results and between input and output, but it's not entirely linear. It's 20% of your input causes 80% of your results. So if you constantly focus on the wrong things, on the other 80%, you are wasting 80% of your energy on stuff that only adds 20% of your results. So you need to focus on the things that make a difference. What tasks that you have on your to-do list are actually making a difference in the end result? Now, how do you define results? That's up to you. To me, and I know this sounds really greedy, but money is the bottom line. It's how I define results. I don't have a choice. I'm a single mom. I have a son to send to college. I have a retirement to prepare for. I have travels that I want to be able to afford and a mortgage to pay, not necessarily in that order. So I need money. It's great to have exposure. It's great to have 5-star reviews. It's great to say, oh my gosh, Nora, I loved your latest book. Like, I love hearing that, but it doesn't pay the bills. I need cold hard cash in my bank account and preferably a whole lot of it. That is the result. So when I look at what I do in any given day or any given week or month, I look for the things, what is making a difference in my income now or in the long term. Sometimes you have to invest time now for something that won't pay off till 6 months later. That's fine. But you better know that it's going to pay off. Unless you have all the time in the world, in which case, knock yourself out. But I'm going to guess that's not the case for any of us. So the majority of our results or outputs comes from a very small number of causes or inputs. So figuring out that relationship is going to be really key to focus on the right things. You need to identify the 20% of that effort that leads to the 80% of your results. For example, in marketing, there is so much that we can do, but what is actually making a difference in our results? What is your top 5 of time-intensive tasks? What is absolutely sucking up your time, and does it bring results? I'm going to be really mean and use an example that somebody mentioned to me this week. So this is a friend of mine and a really successful author. And she spends a lot of time every week building her own financial reports, which is, I get it, it's amazing, as you see the numbers. There's software for that. Is it really necessary to do it yourself? Well, I get that you really want to stay on top of it and that you want the numbers, but if the software does it just as well and in 10% of the time, then why are you doing it yourself? Because it doesn't make a difference in your bottom line. Just an example. I could have sworn I put something in between there. I guess I didn't. Okay, maybe it'll come later. So we can also use tricks on our brain. Our brain is really funny, and it's really easy to influence, actually. The question is, what gives us a dopamine boost? Well, for me, that is checking off an item on my to-do list, feeling like I accomplished something and seeing progress. That gives me a dopamine boost. I know myself well enough. I am the queen of to-do lists. I love them, absolutely freaking love them. I have a stack this high, I kid you not, of to-do lists in various formats and colors, and some of them are pink, and they have cute little unicorns on them or little hearts, and I don't care, they're cute, but they're to-do lists. And I get a huge dopamine boost when I write something on my to-do list and then check it off. In fact, if it's less than 3 minutes, do it. Less than 3 will set you free. If something costs you less than 3 minutes, the second you see it, do it. I'll tell you why. You get the dopamine boost, you get the energy boost, and then you're energized for the next thing that is going to cost more time and more energy. That's how you can trick your brain. The best way to do that is we have these massive tasks on our to-do list. I'm sure you've heard the word direct sales mentioned a few times if you were in the panel this morning. So I'm going to imagine some of you go home and you're going to put on your to-do list, set up direct sales on my website. Right? It's going to go on your website, on your to-do list, sorry. Set up direct sales on my website and you write it on my to-do list. What's the problem with that task? It's massive. That's not a task that you can check off. So what do you need to do? You need to divide that in smaller, doable ones. And you get a free dopamine hit every time you check one off. So the first thing you're going to do is research. Number 2, learner, research. The first thing I'm going to do is research. So I will write down the topics that I want to research. Now, I've heard of Shopify and I've heard of WooCommerce, so the first thing I'm going to write, research Shopify versus WooCommerce, pros and cons. Now, I do the research. I don't have to do anything else. I do the research. I can check that off, free dopamine hit. And then I'm going to make a decision on Shopify or WooCommerce. Check. That is how you work through all these small tasks toward the big task. Putting that big task on your to-do list is absolutely useless. That's not a task, that's a project. And a project needs to be divided into smaller tasks, and those need to go on your to-do list, and then every time you check one off, you get a free dopamine hit. Who needs drugs? The second part of that is that you need to make a realistic to-do list per day. And a second way to trick your brain is to do it the evening before. There's a psychological principle, it's called the Zynic Effect, after the guy who discovered it. And it basically says that our brains tend to remember and hold on to tasks that we have not completed. And he did research on, he was fascinated by waiters and waitresses and how they were able to remember customers' orders without writing them down. Now, obviously, this research was done many years ago, before the computer and everything. He was fascinating. How do these waiters remember the orders? And then he discovered something else. As soon as the waiters had delivered the orders were gone from their system. Afterward, they could not recall what they had delivered to each table, because as soon as the task was done, their brain was like, okay, we're good, Control-Alt-Delete, move on, next. So one way to trick your brain and letting go is by making that to-do list the evening before. That prevents you from lying awake at night, figuring out, I need to do this, I really need to do that. She said that TikTok was really successful for her. Maybe I should write it in a to-do list, let it go. Your brain will actually be grateful if you do this. So that's what I do. Every evening before I stop working, the last thing I do is make a to-do list for the day after, and it's gotta be realistic. If you struggle with that, Try estimating how much time each task costs. Then estimate how much time you'll have to work. Be realistic in that too. And then compare the two. And if the task requires 16 hours and you only have 4, you know you have a problem. Realistic means you schedule 4 hours of task into 4 hours, preferably 4 hours of task into 5 hours, because something always goes wrong, especially if you're a parent. Shit always happens, and it happens at the worst possible moment, right? Son calling 2 hours before a deadline, "Mom, my braces broke." Yeah, that. So make sure you build those emergencies in. And not just for the parents, but that's an example I can use from my own experience. Another way to trick your brain, and we talked actually about that in a panel this morning, is something called the SelfConcept Theory. That's not what we called it, but that's what it's called. You become who you believe yourself to be. I know it sounds really vague when I talk about the power of positive thinking, but it makes all the difference in the world. I did not become successful until I believed I could become successful, that I had what it took to become successful. I know what it is to suffer from imposter syndrome. I'm writing in a language that is not my own. My constant thought is, who the hell do I think that I can write in English when it's not even my own language? Like, it is still my second language. Dutch is and will always be my first. So who do I think I am? Well, I'm Nora Phoenix, and I'm damn successful and damn good at it. That's who I am. But you have to tell yourself that until you believe it, because you become who you believe yourself to be. So if you need work with that, then make sure you do the work. Mindset matters. Something else to help your brain is you have to be willing to face and change unproductive habits, like multitasking. If you're closed off and say, "Oh, but I've always done it like this," then I say, good luck. Knock yourself out. But if you're not successful, then I have the right to say, "How's that working for you?" I love Dr. Phil. I don't, but that phrase I love. How's that working for you? Great question. You should ask yourself that. Other examples, research shows that we're more likely to achieve our goals if we understand the why behind them. One of my driving forces was the why behind my goals. I was a single mom. I had no other source of income except for alimony and spousal support, which I wanted to stop as soon as possible because I'm too proud to accept money from anybody else. So I had a why. I wanted to support myself and my son and build a great future for us. That is the why. Staying organized and tidy positively influence our mental and physical health. I know some of you are cringing right now. That's okay. Clutter de-stresses our brain, research shows. If you're the absolute chaotic person, just pretend you didn't see this. It's okay. Be satisfied with good. This is really where I give a warning. If you're a perfectionist, this is going to be really, really hard for you, and you might have to decide that you can't do this. Perfect is the enemy of done. That's it. If you insist on everything being perfect, you're never going to get shit done. I've had to learn to be satisfied with good. Good is good enough. Choose the right thing. This is really where we struggle, right? How do we decide whether we should do TikTok or Twitter or Facebook or maybe do direct sales or one thing? So I'm going to give you a couple of questions that I ask myself to help. Is it a one-time thing or is it a commitment? How much time will it take? And be realistic. This is really where you want to be realistic. There's a difference for me if I'm asked to do a one-time speech for an hour or if I'm asked to coach somebody for an undetermined amount of time. Those two time commitments are very different. How much will it cost in resources? Money, energy, time of others, all that. Do I love it? Do I like it? And is a success or a positive outcome guaranteed? But the main question is, will it move the needle? Will it bring results? That is the question, if you truly want to focus on what matters, that you should ask yourself above all else. Will it move the needle? So, what moves the needle? The best story you can write. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be captivating and well written. And if you write romance, tropes matter. Good editing and proofing. It's not required for everything, but I think in the market that we're in, it's becoming more and more of a necessity. A great blurb. an appealing cover that's to market for your genre and your niche. These are the things that move the needle. And the reason I know is because research shows that this is what readers focus on when they pick their next book. Reviews, preferably good ones. Readers look at reviews. Promotion moves the needle, marketing, obviously. But not all promotion is created equal. So what you need to do is follow the data. Let's see if this will load. Will not, there we go. I use, I'm about to say Readerlinks, and John is going to kill me. It's not Readerlinks, it's Author Helper Suite. Yay, points for me. It used to be called Readerlinks, it's Author Helper Suite. If you're not using it, if you're a starting author, don't worry about it. But if you are a more experienced author, you absolutely need this or something like this because it helps me track what is working for me. I can track links and see where they are working. So you can see that these are all the links for the same book and where I place them. And then, oh, sorry, it's not. Yes, it is. It's not. Sorry, my screen is too small and I'm not wearing my glasses. Oh, this is the research. I'm sorry. This is a research survey we did among romance readers where we asked what is causing you to try a new author. And this is what they said. So recommendation from other authors scored really high. Amazon reviews. You need to know what readers look at. I'm sorry, I legit cannot read it on my screen. And then BookBub, these are way less. Mind you, this is my audience for my genre, for my readers, which is why I am not on TikTok, because it's not important to my readers. Okay, now we're getting to Readerlinks. If it is willing to load, it is not. There we are. This is Readerlinks. What it does is it tells me which link, which marketing is working the best for me. I know I'm running out of time, and I hope to have time for questions. That's unfortunately because we had a little delay in getting started as I was freewheeling it. So I did a case study. It's not that important. I'm just explaining to you why I am not on TikTok, and this is why. It's a big time commitment. It's cost me way too much time. I don't like it. I'm not a TikTok fan. Success is not guaranteed. That's why. And my audience, my readers, are not primarily on TikTok. That's why I'm not on TikTok. Maybe you should be, I can't say that. Recovering old books is a similar, should I recover old books? Well, it's a one-time thing, I can spread it out, it will cost money, but it's mostly money and not time, and I don't have to change the covers, my PA does that. I do like looking at models, so that's a definite plus. I mean, it's a hardship, I tell you. I suffer greatly to look at all the bare men chests. Success is not guaranteed, but it may move the needle. This is an easy one for me because my most valuable resource is time. So if it costs me time, I don't do it. This just costs me money, and I can afford it, and my PA will upload, so that's a no-brainer for me. This, people, learn to say no. More than anything else, you need to learn to say no. The best productivity tool is the word no, and it really is. Learn to say no. Make no your default instead of yes. If they ask you for something, no. And don't say, I'm sorry. That's automatic. I'm sorry. No, you don't need to apologize. No is a complete sentence. Needs nothing else. You don't need to explain. You don't need to defend. No, just no. Works. A not to-do list is even more important than a to-do list. It really is. So when you do say yes, make them count. All right, one last thought, and it doesn't load. Focus on what you can control. Look, there's a whole lot of crap that we can't control because things happen. Amazon changes algorithm or changes categories, or something goes viral on TikTok, or we decide to write a book about the White House just before the whole country goes to hell in a handbasket. Ask me how I found that one out. That stuff I can't control. Focus on what you can control. All right, here's your book recommendations. We are absolutely at the end of the time. I apologize. If you have any questions, come find me. I will hang out there and answer all the questions you have, I promise. I'm sorry for not being able to do it here. I hope this was useful to you. Thank you.